What's up, Kansas City? I'm your host, Glenn Bryan for Zell. Today we are taping in the historic 18th and Vine Jazz District at the Lincoln Building, home of Cascade Media Group. This is part 2 of our interview with City Councilman Jermaine Reed, 3rd District. We'd like to talk to you a little bit about youth violence in the city. Since you were here last, there was another disturbance on the plaza that caused Police Chief Forte to announce that he would beef up a police presence. Not too long ago, youth violence exploded and gunfire erupted during a free day at the Kansas City Zoo. What is your response to these problems, to the youth who are creating these problems, and how do we create safe environments with programs like Club C, KC, and Night Hoops right around the corner?
Well, that's a pretty compact question, and I think that on one hand, people could ask the city leaders, what are you going to do to stop you from acting up? Well, I personally...
Is that a fair question?
Yes and no, right? I personally can't stop a youngster from going out and acting a fool. Mm-hmm. Now, if I see a young person acting a fool, well, of course I'm gonna say, hey man, come on, you need to act right. But it takes all of us as a community and parents stepping up to be parents, or uncles and aunts, and us taking on those responsibilities. So that's number one. And that's outside of any legislation, any dollars that we could provide from the city. It takes us being parents, us being uncles, us, we have to do our part and not allow for our young people to go out and cause a ruckus. That's number one. Number two, when it relates to, I guess, the incident that occurred over in the zoo, again, an unfortunate incident that, and if you look at all the facts here, the day at the zoo was going extremely well. Now, I would say perhaps they weren't necessarily over capacity, but they were seeing thousands of people, not just young people, but people, over 19,000 people who came through the zoo from the opening all the way to the close, which was about 3 o'clock at the end of the day for the free day. And it's something that will continue to occur in our we as city leaders will continue looking at ways to make sure that we can continue to provide that to Jackson County residents and also other counties as well, which is part of that. But we have to make sure that as the summer months come about, that we have a common sense ordinance on the books as it relates to allowing for young people to stay out past times that they should be or not. Currently, the ordinance that's on the books is a bit confusing because it has so many different times where it talks about sometimes 11 o'clock, sometimes it talks about 10 o'clock, sometimes the ages for the ordinance, they vary.
Interesting.
And so the police officers themselves have mentioned that there have been some confusion as it relates to it. And so it's part of the reason why I continue to monitor citations every time that they come about when we're looking at them, because they got to report to us every 6 months about the citations. But we've got to look at ways to improve that. When it comes to guns being in the hands of young people or just in the hands of people in general, that's something that we just can't tolerate, and we can't allow for people to go off and just start shooting in the middle of a crowd. When I think about 106 homicides just last year alone, that's something that we just can't tolerate.
No, we can't.
And we have to do all that we can as a city to make sure that we're combating those type of things from happening in our community, because they don't do anything positive or good for the betterment of our community, and we've got to do all that we can. And I think that we're working hard as a city to prevent these type of incidents from happening. But I would encourage parents to step up and be parents, our churches and others, to encourage our young people not to act up when they're out. And I think that's so vital.
That is very important. Let me ask you, since you've been here last, you've added another title to your resume. You're now director of Ad-Hoc.
Well, interim director.
interim director. What happened to Mr. Brian Dial?
Well, let's back up a little bit. I've served as the chair for a very, very long time of the Ad Hoc Group Against Crime. And actually, if I were to back up even further, probably when I was 9 years old, I was also a recipient of services of Ad Hoc. And so I grew up in the system with Ad Hoc.
Right, you were on the radio.
That's right,
with Mr. Brooks.
as a kid.
Yes.
So I've been around for a very long time with the organization, and for the past 3 to 4 years, I've served as the board of directors chair. And so when our bylaws basically say that when someone resigns, someone from the executive team has to step up and serve as an interim. And so currently that's what I'm doing, is serving as an interim director. And eventually we will be looking for a potential new successor for Mr. Brooks in the next couple of months. But the work of the organization is so important, and a lot of times I find myself asking, what is the work of, is the body of work of Mr. Brooks still important? And when I think about the work that we're doing currently, the counselors that we have who work directly with families who've been victimized by homicides, when it comes to the mothers supporting healing and justice, and the training that they're doing, the work that the organization is doing through Combat, the anti-violence initiative, where we're going directly into jails and working with people who have committed some sort of small crime or whatnot, and getting them to think differently about the things that they're doing. But then also parents who are going in and training these young people. The work that we're doing and helping with KCMO, which is a partnership with the police department, the county prosecutor, and also the sheriff, and so many others. The work of the organization is so vital, and we're going to continue to keep it moving.
Wow, sounds like you have a lot on your plate. I understand that you sit on a committee, and I took a sneak peek at one of your proposed agendas coming up. And on the agenda is a motion to accept and approve a grant to provide funding to the city's Aim for Peace program. What is Aim for Peace, and what kind of programs will we be seeing with that program in our community this summer?
Well, Aim for Peace is an effort that is housed out of our health department. And I mean, when you think about violence, it is a public health issue, and one where people who perhaps are victimized, or if there's some sort of treatments or what have you, it's a huge issue. And so the funding in which you're talking about was a federal grant, which Aim for Peace has been awarded, very competitive. They are a model based, so they have a lot of data that is as part of their work. And so it's great to see that they have received that grant, because the city does award funds to Aim for Peace for the work that they do. They have violence interrupters who are out on the street, on the front lines, and these are individuals who have been in and out of prison or served some sort of time, and they have credibility in the street. Some would call it street cred, and so they're working. They're working every single day to interrupt violence in our community. And this is a model that is something that has occurred across the entire country. And so that grant is one that will help them do their work, and eventually will help Aim for Peace spread throughout the entire city, and not just in the small area in which they are in. And we're also, you mentioned Ad Hoc, we're also looking for ways outside of the grant, because that's a conflict of interest for me. Serving as the interim director, I can't have anything to do with any funds that are related to Ad Hoc Group Against Crime, and I'm for the most part the same way as it is as the chair. I can't have any direct impact lobbying or anything to do with those type of funds, because it could be seen as unethical. But we are looking at ways to partner with Aim for Peace through the Ad Hoc Group Against Crime, and also some other initiatives that help reduce crime and violence in our community. I yearn for a day that we will be able to say that violence in this city is something that we do not see at all. And we don't have organizations like Ad Hoc or Aim for Peace or Peacekeepers or others, because we live in a community free of violence and crime. That will be a day. Martin Luther King had a dream. I've got a dream, and that's a dream that I have. Because families shouldn't have to grieve because of a loved one being shot down on the street, or a 3-year-old being shot on the streets. We shouldn't see that in our community. We shouldn't tolerate it, and hopefully one day we'll get there where we won't see it at all.
We have our work ahead of us there. Mr. Reed, you have a Twitter feed on your kc3rd.com page where followers can kind of see what you've been up to lately. On March 13th, you posted about a trip to Washington, D.C., the National League of Cities Congressional City Conference connecting City Hall to Capitol Hill.
Yeah.
What are some of the initiatives that were discussed at the conference? Did you give a speech? What did you talk about at the conference?
Well, the National League of Cities is just that. It's National League of Cities where municipalities, small and large, throughout this entire country, come together and advocate on Capitol Hill about issues that are affecting our own cities. So their theme this past conference was connecting, as you said, connecting City Hall to Capitol Hill. And so I serve on a number of committees through National League of Cities, and it's a great way for us in our city to benefit from things that are happening on a federal level. In our interview that we had in the first segment, we talked a great deal about streetcar. And so while there, we had an opportunity to meet with Secretary Fox, where we were able to lobby for streetcar initiatives. I serve on a couple of other committees, and actually transportation infrastructure is one of them. So we're been able to be with my involvement and also some of my colleagues' involvements who are on many boards through National League of Cities. It allows for us to know about different funding mechanisms and ways for us to basically bring back those dollars back home into our local communities, but also advocating on Capitol Hill. The National Black Caucus of Local Elected Officials is another board that I serve on through National League of Cities. We have a Father's Day initiative that it will be coming up on June 14th. And it will be a day that will have a march, and municipalities throughout the entire country are going to be rallying, where we're asking for fathers to stand up and end violence in our communities, because unfortunately violence isn't just unique to Kansas City. It's something that's happening across the country, and one of the things that we discussed while there. You asked if I gave any speeches. No, I didn't give any major speeches while there, but I did serve in a number of different capacities through the boards and roles that I currently serve on.
I saw the picture you posted on your account. You're standing behind the podium looking very official-like.
Well, I serve on the different committees. I guess if you want to call that a speech. I didn't give a large speech to the whole conference, but was speaking in many of the workshops and things that I'm involved in, which gives us a voice from Kansas City.
Very well, Councilman Reed. I have two more questions. I know that one initiative that we are going to try to cover more extensively on What's Up Kansas City throughout the summer came directly out of the White House. President Obama announced this My Brother's Keeper initiative. The task force looks to address issues in the education and criminal justice system that directly affect young men of color. Was My Brother's Keeper discussed at all when
Absolutely.
you were in D.C.?
Yeah.
And how can the president's initiative benefit the black men in the Kansas City who stay in your district?
Well, number one, I applaud President Obama for taking on such a topic, which, I mean, going into his second term, something we didn't really hear President Obama talk about, especially as an African American, not to the extent in which he did. Mayor James was actually at the announcement when he announced this at the White House because he was there lobbying for the Republican National Convention. And so he had a first hand to be there with Congressman Cleaver and so many others across this country who were at the White House that day. 86% of African Americans every single year who go into the fourth grade are reading below their actual reading levels. So that means that in third grade, 86% of African Americans aren't necessarily even reading to their level that they should. It's the same for Hispanic males who aren't reading and who aren't necessarily ready in fourth grade to take on the rigors of education. That number compared to African Americans and Hispanics, 86%, and when you look at the numbers across the country for their counterparts, which are Caucasian males, it's 54%. 54%, third grade, fourth grade level.
That's a big disparity there.
Huge. And so this is one of the things that President Obama is trying to take on across this country, and they're working through a number of grants. And we did have an opportunity to talk about this a great deal while in Washington, D.C. We met with the Congressional Black Caucus, the chair, Marsha Fudge, and we also met with some other policy individuals from some think tanks in D.C. And one of the things that they shared with us is that there isn't any federal dollars that will be going into states. Now, that is not necessarily good for municipalities like us here in Kansas City, or states like Missouri and Kansas or others. And so there are some foundations that the president has been able to work with that will be able to fund different initiatives across the country. But a lot of those foundations are placed on the East Coast or West Coast. And so we were trying to work through ways and talk through ways of how we could see some benefits right in the heartland of the country.
Was Reverend Cleaver at the meeting?
He was, yeah. And he's a he's immediate past chair, I should say, of the Congressional Black Caucus. And so, yes, he was a
Congressman Cleaver.
Congressman Cleaver, Reverend Cleaver, Rev, whatever you want to call him. He's a hometown boy. He knows. but so we're looking at ways to get funding here in Kansas City. But right now there isn't necessarily a lot of dollars attached to this actual program. However, the bully pulpit that the president has does allow for us to have a renewed focus on African American boys and young men in our cities across this country. And right here in Kansas City, we've got a lot of work for young men who look up to both you and I, who look up to people like Congressman Cleaver and Alvin Brooks, who I mentioned before, and so many others. And they don't necessarily see positive role models outside of maybe a basketball player, a football player, or a rapper or something. And so this initiative will help us to be able to provide some sort of new role models and so much more.
Mr. Reed, last question here, and I'm going to give you the
Last question.
floor for final words. Mayor James presented his State of the City address about 2 weeks ago. In it, he noted that Kansas City is showing forward momentum, but there are a couple of ways that we could be tripped up: crime and education. We talked a little bit about crime. We talked a little bit about education. Mr. Reed, you grew up in Kansas City, as did Mayor James. What do you think about some of the things that he said during his address?
I thought the mayor's speech was very, very good. And I thought it was very great to see him take the State of the City somewhere else. At first, I was a little reluctant, thinking, he's going to take it somewhere that's not necessarily in the city. And if you think back to last year, he was just right here in the historic 18th and Vine area, and unfortunately, someone interrupted his speech, and so one would have sort of thought, the mayor's taking this away from the city, and not necessarily right in the heart of the city. Mm-hmm. Kansas City is 332 square miles big, mm-hmm. and so we have a lot of land mass. And over 500,000 people who live in this city. And so for the mayor to take the State of the City address up north, but talk about issues that affect us. And he spent literally 16 to 17 minutes talking about crime and violence and other issues outside of his hour-long speech, things that impact us right here in the heart of our city. But at least 16, 17 minutes on just crime and violence and how we, as a city, have to actually step up and do it in an area that really doesn't necessarily see it. But the mayor talking about it from a citywide issue and something that impacts all of us is really, really important. He talked about a number of other issues in which we sort of touched on during our discussion today, from streetcar and some other initiatives and things that he is working on during his term, and how well we as a council have worked together. But that's the state of our city. He said that the state of our city is strong and flourishing, and that's a good sign because unfortunately we had a closed for business sign a couple of years ago. If folks remember that, some mayor we had, I can't really remember, but it was closed for business. But we are open for business, and and the city is strong under the leadership of our mayor and the council because of the hard work and the commitment that we have. Especially to the urban core in our community. And the mayor talked about it, and I'm proud to serve with him and my colleagues to make a difference here in the city.
Strong and flourishing. I like how you threw that closed for business sign in there.
I don't know if you remember. You remember that? I don't remember.
We might have to rewind a couple
No,
tapes in the archives.
let's not do that. Let's not go back in time.
Well, Mr. Reed, the floor is yours. Do you have any final words, any upcoming projects you're working on during the summer you'd like to talk to us about?
Well, I look forward to coming back to What's Up Kansas City. I know that you all have a very good viewing audience. I get a lot of comments from people who watch this show. So look forward to coming back and having many discussions with you about some initiatives that are going on. But I won't say much more than what we've talked about already.
Very energetic, man. Do you take 5 hours? You drink coffee?
No, man. This is all natural. This is all natural.
All natural.
And this is a 9 a.m. interview. So this is I wake up thinking, and then you're gonna get me to testify. Because I wake up thinking about the goodness of the Lord and all He's done for me, and I've got to be.
Amen, bro. Amen.
I feel good. So no energy drink, just this bottle of water. I take a lot of this all day.
Well, Councilman Reed is going to come back, and he is going to interview himself. He has so much energy.
I don't know about that. I can interview you though.
Anytime.
Okay. I won't interview myself.
Check out more video online at www.whatsupkansascity.net. And remember, the sky is truly the limit. Dream big, aim for the stars, and you will be fine. Till next time, this is Glenn Frizzell. Take care.
CMG wants you to always remember, the victory we call success goes to the best prepared. When you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself. Thanks.